secured.
Yeah, I gotta switch it to R3.
Oh!
Yo,
somebody clicked that. Somebody clicked that.
Somebody that went.
Since its inception, XDefiant has had more drama surrounding its name than Netflix's Love is Blind series. They've dealt with a lot leading up to launch. This includes creative differences, server issues, the whole nine. But somehow, some way, they still managed to get the game out. And despite their shortcomings, they still managed to garner over 3 million unique players in just their first 2 days of launch. But the question is, should you care? I mean, this game was announced back in 2021, and since then, it's gone through just as many delays as the MCU's Blade. Reports claim Ubisoft's poor management kept this new arcade shooter in beta purgatory for an extended stay. Then there's the rumors of crunch culture and a toxic work environment that also gave this game a negative stigma. With the pressure mounting, many online wondered if this game could deliver. Well, XDefiant has finally dropped, and I'm here today to answer that question if it was worth all the drama. Before we get into my personal opinion on the game, I'd like to dive a little deeper into this game's history, seeing as that's what helped shape what we have today. So the year is 2021, and Ubisoft took to social media to announce their latest asset game called Tom Clancy's XDefiant. A lot of you may have forgotten, but I didn't. See, the original game's name had Tom Clancy attached to it, even though there wasn't a story and it was just a multiplayer game. Off rip, that rubbed many people the wrong way because many felt like Ubisoft had been milking the deceased author's name for some time now. This game was developed by Ubisoft San Francisco, who's responsible for titles such as the South Park RPGs, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws. With its intuitive shooting mechanics and its hero abilities, many would define this as an arcade shooter that combined elements from titles such as Call of Duty and Overwatch. But the general public's perception of the game wasn't the most favorable. I saw many referring to this game online as a bootleg Call of Duty that just reused assets from older Ubisoft games. It also didn't help that this game featured a Splinter Cell inspired class called the Echelon, when we haven't gotten a new Splinter Cell game in over a decade.
Now you see now. You done fucked up, you know that, don't you?
Just take one look at the comment section in the original reveal trailer and it will quickly paint a picture of how the public felt about this game. With comments such as, realistic gameplay? Has a guy running and gunning with an LMG and a force field around him. And this is just Ubisoft having a midlife crisis. It's safe to assume most people were not messing with this game. Ubisoft's next move was to conduct a closed alpha test for a select number of gamers who signed up on their website back in 2021. Ubisoft was taking notes from player feedback, and after just 2 closed alphas, they shut down any public communication about this game. And I don't blame them either, because I remember those closed alphas and I remember the original perception of the game. And that's because I played in one of the 2 alphas, and after one test, I knew the original version of XDefiant was bound to fail. The only problem is I wasn't able to express this because Ubisoft had every alpha tester under a tight NDA. Now that time has passed, I can say the original version of this game's time to kill was far too long, the servers were laggy, and the classes were completely unbalanced. That's just a few of the many things that made me uninstall this alpha after only playing for a couple of hours. I honestly thought this game was gonna get canceled, so it's amazing to see how far they've come. The developers didn't get mad, but instead they listened to the feedback they got and they kept their heads down for the next 2 years. It was in 2023 that they dropped the Tom Clancy name and they ran a few more beta tests, and guess what? The game still had some balancing issues with its class system and weapons, but they did manage to fix the core gameplay loop. The movement was much smoother, the gunplay was tighter, and the TTK was faster. This led to a much more positive outlook on the game, which is a miracle considering the fact that XDefiant was down on the canvas for the 10 count. This positive feedback led to more beta tests and the developers being more transparent on social media, with occasional updates for the COD refugees looking for a new home. Momentum was in their favor. That is, until the late development cycle of this game. Late into the game's development, reports began to surface that Ubisoft's workspace had become toxic. It was one of the main reasons why this game had suffered from delay after delay. Apparently, there was a group of devs within the XDefiant team that many employees referred to as the Boys Club. The Boys Club was causing problems, and here's the plot twist. That was just a name. The Boys Club included toxic men and toxic women that were steering the ship astray. Reports claim that the Boys Club mismanaged time, resources, and they constantly disrespected everyone below them in the food chain. Anonymous Anonymous employees came forward to reveal that one of the reasons this game was constantly delayed was because the boys club wanted the game to be more like Call of Duty instead of trusting the original vision. One person went as far as to say the mantra you'd often hear when it came to brainstorming ideas is, yeah, that's a good idea, but what would Call of Duty do? Employees also claim the boys club would attempt to shoehorn their ideas into the game last minute, which often broke something else in the game. One day you'd have one person in management telling the crew to do this, and the next day you'd have another manager saying do the opposite. Ultimately, this led to developer crunch, missed deadlines, mental breakdowns, and more. This boys club was allegedly wreaking havoc on the whole team, and if I could throw my personal opinion in there, I tend to believe these reports because similar reports came out about Ubisoft during the development of that stinker known as Skull and Bones. One developer on Skull and Bones told the press, Skull and Bones lacked any form of stability. Managers were constantly brought on who would redesign the game from the ground up, only to be replaced by a new manager who would do the same thing. This process left some of the team feeling demotivated and burnt out. The issues surrounding development are so bad that one former developer said the team became more and more junior because all the talent and all the experience would leave constantly. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. And all I'm saying is,
there's smoke, there's fire.
Between the crunch, the toxic management, and the constant delays, it's a miracle this game even saw the light of day. But somehow, some way, they made it through. So the question now is, was it worth it? Early reviews have been generally favorable, and the first 2 hours of launch, the game reached 1 million unique players online. Reports claim this is the fastest growing Ubisoft game in the studio's long history of releases. So the question remains, well, what does the Black Hokage think of the game? Well, we're gonna get into that, but first, quick disclaimer. The following video is not a full review. This video contains my first impressions of XDefiant and some general info on the game. Due to patches and balance changes, these multiplayer games tend to evolve over time, so how I feel about it today may not be how I feel about it in the future. So feel free to take everything I say in this impressions section with a grain of salt. But with that being said, here's everything you need to know before you install XDefiant. XDefiant is a free-to-play arcade shooter from Ubisoft that sports crossplay at launch. It's out now for the PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and a platform literally no sane person owns called the Amazon Luna. It's an objective-based first-person shooter with no skill-based matchmaking, so just know that not every match you enter will be a sweat fest. At launch, the game contains 6 classes, each associated with a faction from another Ubisoft game. These factions include the Freedom Fighters from Far Cry 6, the Phantoms from Ghost Recon, the Echelon from Splinter Cell, the Cleaners from The Division, and DedSec from Watch Dogs. Each class has useful abilities, things such as healing, fire drones, shields, and more, and they're a lot of fun to play when you have a team that knows how to coordinate. I personally enjoy the fire drone because it gives the player a nice AoE attack. This is great for initiating offense when attacking a point. I also enjoy the healer because not only can you heal yourself after a close fight, but you can heal your team when you get your ultimate. Once again, this is another useful tool when you're trying to hold your points. I do believe some classes are a bit overpowered and can use some tweaking in future updates, specifically speaking on the Echelon class. That gives the player a UAV every 30 seconds. Look, XDefiant is a 6v6 PvP game, and you will often run into teams where they're running 4 to 6 people who are running that UAV class. That means someone will always have a UAV, making it damn near impossible to flank or move because the enemy constantly knows your position. The same thing applies to the healing class, and this is coming from somebody who plays the healer. The healer's ult is busted. It's an AoE that heals at a rapid pace, so it's almost impossible to kill someone standing on the healer's ult in a 1v1. Now imagine a few of them tossing it down on an objective. You're not getting it, and it feels unfair in a shooting game. The abilities should be there to help, but ultimately gunplay should supersede everything in a first-person shooter. I think Ubisoft should limit how many people can run a certain class in a match because certain lineups are just cheese. One more knock I have on this game's class system is the fact that there isn't an Assassin's Creed class in this game. When I think of Ubisoft these days, the first thing that comes to mind is Assassin's Creed. To not have the Assassins or maybe even the Templars in this game is a crime. I pray they're added in a future update because I think there's potential for a lot of fun there. The Assassins could be a low armor class that specializes in melee, their footsteps are maybe a little quieter, and they could use the hidden blade. Shit, make the hidden blade like Commando Pro in Modern Warfare 2. Not as overpowered, but something like it. They can make it so Commando Pro only works when you catch an enemy from behind, so the Assassins could be flankers with SMGs. I don't know, just throwing some ideas out there. And while we're doing that, we also need a Rayman class. Not because it makes sense, but because I think it would be funny to see propeller heads and rabbits running around with guns.
You're done. year now.
I'd say the gunplay feels tight and concise, but also arcadey. There's basically no recoil on any of the guns, so if you played any Call of Duty, you'll be able to pick up the basics of this game right away. The difference between the good and the bad players is going to be map awareness, movement, teamwork, and understanding your abilities. The movement in this game is cracked out. It's very fast-paced, and I love it. My only critique of the game's movement is the current meta. If you played this game, you know every sweat is sliding and jumping from corners to catch their opponent off guard. And that's fine, but in its current state, it's a bit OP. The reason being is the person who slides has the option to change directions mid-air when they jump, so it often leaves the player feeling like their bullets are just going through an enemy. And look, I'm guilty of doing it myself because I'm trying to win, but I can also recognize when something isn't balanced. It's become such an issue that it's the hottest topic on the XDefiant subreddit, so I think Ubisoft should take a look at tweaking some of the game's movement because this should not be a thing. The hit registry can be hit or miss too. When it's good, but when it's bad, oh my god, it's bad. I think it has something to do with the servers being shaky, because sometimes you'll run to cover, you'll be behind cover, but you'll still die from gunfire. When stuff like this happens to you in close matches, which a lot of them are because this game is full of sweats, it makes you want to throw your controller. Another disappointment about the gunplay and the game as a whole is the lack of new content. XDefiant's full release is basically the beta with a battle pass. There's 17 weapons at launch, but everyone uses the same 6. Weapons feel fine to me for the most part, but the developers have to do something about that TAC 50 sniper rifle. It takes 0 skill to use that thing, so you have a bunch of maniacs running around quickscoping. And quickscopers, before you get your panties in a bunch, understand, I am okay with quickscoping, but they need to increase the skill gap to do it. There's absolutely no flinching when you hit people. So what happens is you have snipers running directly into your line of fire, eating half a clip and sniping your head off in one shot. Look, I know it's an arcade game, but that's bullshit. Increase the flinch on damage or the scope sway or something. One other critique I have about weapons is the grind to unlock them. I know this is a free-to-play game, but it's a chore to unlock weapons. Matter of fact, you're most likely only going to see a few weapons in my gameplay because it takes forever to unlock new weapons and weapon attachments. I have like 15 hours on the game at the moment. I win most of my matches and I still barely unlock much. It kind of sucks the fun out of the game and it starts to feel less like a game and more like work when you want to experiment. Now for my research, it said the game launched with 14 maps, but I can't tell. It seems like you play on the same 4 or 5, so either Google is lying or the map rotation is absolutely horrible. Free-to-play titles always live or die based off their post-launch content, and I pray Ubisoft keeps the game updated with fresh content. Now at launch, there are 5 game modes. This includes Escort, Zone Control, Domination, Occupy, and Hotshot. My favorite mode is Hotshot. It's a spin on the classic Kill Confirmed, where players have to collect the dog tags from dead enemies. The player with the most dog tags gets promoted to the Hotshot, and what's cool is the Hotshot turns the player into Sonic the Hedgehog by giving them a speed boost. This is a lot of fun to run around like a little crackhead and just be blasting enemies. The only downside is the game makes you visible to enemies, so you have to keep moving and hitting your shots. And you'll need to keep moving because this game in its current state is rumored to be riddled with cheaters and hackers. There's a lot of sus stuff in this game that's going on, and it's hard to tell if it's a cheater or not. The reason being is the servers can be shaky at times, but also this game lacks a kill cam right now. It seems like everyone in this game is an MLG sweat, and I just don't believe it. Put a kill cam and a reporting system in this game because I'm seeing all types of bullshit like this. Now, since we're bitching, I'd also like to bring up the game's optimization. Don't get me wrong, the game does run well. Matter of fact, right before the launch, Ubisoft revealed they lowered their recommended specs to run this game on PC, so kudos to them for optimizing this game so even a toaster can run it. My issue with the PC version is the launcher known as Ubisoft Connect. I have this game on my SSD, and I swear I'm not trying to be funny when I say this game sometimes takes several minutes just to launch. It's so slow, and it's the only game on my PC that does this. For the love of God, fix your launcher, Ubisoft, or just put the game on Steam. Every time I try to boot this game up, I catch myself saying, brother, Now, one thing I do think this game got correctly is the little things. At the end of every game, it highlights what each player did best for their team, and if you did nothing, the game roasts you. I first noticed this in the beta when I ran solo with some randoms, so I tweeted about it because I hadn't seen anyone else mention it at the time. It was 2 people on my team that were absolute ass, and the game said they just ran around and were great for moral support. I love little stuff like this because I'm a troll, and this causes chaos in the Discord amongst friend groups.
DB, dude.
Will.
Yo, Will.
Congrats
Personal
on that.
best KD
Congrats
ratio.
on that KD,
Congrats,
dude.
Yo, I'll give you a congrats on that, dude. I gave you a little thumbs up for that.
Honestly,
Best.
how dare you?
Thumbs up, Will.
I'm giving
Oh,
thumbs
yeah,
up,
dude.
dude. Oh, there we go.
Thumbs up, dude. Hey, I bet you that's feeling pretty good, Will.
With my gripes aside, honestly, I like XDefiant. It's a fun, free-to-play shooter that has crossplay and no skill-based matchmaking. I don't know if this is the Call of Duty killer that some people are calling it on social media, but it is a fun alternative, and Lord knows Call of Duty needs competition. This is something you and the boys can hop on for a few games without having to give too much of a time commitment, and I'm okay with that. As long as you go into this game with the right expectations, I have no problem recommending giving it a shot because honestly, it doesn't cost anything. I think this game will live or die depending on how often they drop content, the quality of said content, and the community feedback. So to answer the question earlier, was it worth all the drama? Only time will tell. But what I can tell you is, I wasn't all that impressed with Hellblade 2. That's Xbox's big new AAA game, and oh boy does it have some problems. If you want to know what they are, well, just click the card on the screen right now.